Best practice for using assert? Is there a performance or code maintenance issue with using assert as part of the standard code instead of using it just for debugging purposes? Is better or worse than? Also, is there any way to set a business rule like if x is lower than 0 raise error that is always checked without the try/except/finally so, if at any time throughout the code x is less than 0 an error is raised, like if you set assert x is lower than 0 at the start of a function, anywhere within the function where x becomes less than 0 an exception is raised.
To be able to automatically throw an error when x become less than 0 throughout the function, you can use class descriptors. Here is an example.
Assert should be used to test conditions that should never happen. The purpose is to crash early in the case of a corrupt program state. Exceptions should be used for errors that can conceivably happen, and you should almost always create your own exception classes. For example, if you're writing a function to read from a configuration file into a dict, improper formatting in the file should raise a configuration syntax error, while you can assert that you're not about to return none. In your example, if x is a value set via a user interface or from an external source, an exception is best. If x is only set by your own code in the same program, go with an assertion.
Assert statements are removed when the compilation is optimized. So, yes, there are both performance and functional differences. The current code generator emits no code for an assert statement when optimization is requested at compile time. Python 2 docs, Python 3 docs. If you use assert to implement application functionality, then optimize the deployment to production, you will be plagued by but it works in dev defects. See Python optimize in OU.
The four purposes of assert. Assume you work on 200,000 lines of code with 4 colleagues Alice, Bernd, Carl, and Daphne. They call your code, you call their code. Then assert has 4 roles. Inform Alice, Bernd, Carl, and Daphne what your code expects. Assume you have a method that processes a list of tuples and the program logic can break if those tuples are not immutable. This is more trustworthy than equivalent information in the documentation and much easier to maintain. Inform the computer what your code expects. Assert enforces proper behavior from the callers of your code. If your code calls Alice's and Bernd's code calls yours, then without the assert, if the program crashes in Alice's code, Bernd might assume it was Alice's fault. Alice investigates and might assume it was your fault. You investigate and tell Bernd it was in fact his. Lots of work lost. With asserts, whoever gets a call wrong, they will quickly be able to see it was their fault, not yours. Alice, Bernd, and you all benefit. Saves immense amounts of time. Inform the readers of your code, including yourself, what your code has achieved at some point. Assume you have a list of entries and each of them can be clean, which is good, or it can be smosh, trowel, gullop, or twinkled, which are all not acceptable. If it's smosh it must be unsmoshed, if it's trowel it must be baludoed, if it's gullop it must be trotted, and then possibly paced, too. If it's twinkled it must be twinkled again except on Thursdays. You get the idea, it's complicated stuff. But the end result is, or ought to be, that all entries are clean. The right thing to do is to summarize the effect of your cleaning loop as: This statement saves a headache for everybody trying to understand what exactly it is that the wonderful loop is achieving. And the most frequent of these people will likely be yourself. Inform the computer what your code has achieved at some point. Should you ever forget to paste an entry needing it after trotting, the assert will save your day and avoid that your code breaks Dear Daphne's much later. In my mind, assert's two purposes of documentation, 1 and 3, and safeguard, 2 and 4, are equally valuable. Informing the people may even be more valuable than informing the computer because it can prevent the very mistakes the assert aims to catch, in case 1, and plenty of subsequent mistakes in any case.